All right, so we're joined from the Big Easy of New Orleans, Louisiana, by Arianne Craig Jolla, founder of the Hype Academy and Cash Academy. Just so many things she's done. Speaking recently at the New Orleans Entrepreneur Week, TED Talker, you name it, she's done it. Graduate of Dillard University and the University of New Orleans. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today. It's our entrepreneurship class. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools. Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg, and everybody who's out there watching and listening. Um, that area is actually very close to my heart. My family, my mom is from Crystal Springs, Mississippi, not far from there.
Uh-huh.
My dad, Tylertown, Mississippi, and we actually, when we fled New Orleans for Katrina, we actually spent some time in Jackson. Ended up being there for about a year.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good to be back virtually.
Awesome. Now, obviously, we want to talk about all the business you're doing and all the great things you've had on the horizon just in the last few months. But you did go to the prestigious HBCU Dillard
I
University,
did.
one of
I
the oldest
did.
HBCUs in the world, one of the part of the Black Ivy League. So just tell us about that experience. I don't think it's any better time than during Black History Month to talk about all the great things HBCUs have to offer.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Greg. I actually, when I was in high school, I went to actually another historic institution, which is St. Mary's Academy in New Orleans. I don't know if you've heard
Yeah,
recently,
yeah,
two girls were on CNN solving that Pythagorean theorem problem that's thousands of
yeah,
years old. That
yep.
is my alma mater. I finished there
That's
in
awesome.
90 there in 97. I remember my high school counselor. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, post at least what university I wanted to attend. And I asked her, I said, "Do you think I should go to UNO or should I go to Dillard?" And I had gotten accepted into both and had a partial scholarship to Dillard, but I was still trying to decide. I had gone to a predominantly African American school my entire life, my entire academic career, and I didn't know if maybe I needed something different. And she asked me one question. She said, "Do you think that you're going to need community? Do you think that you're going to need support?" And I said, "I've never been to college before. I'm the first one to finish high school, the first of my mom's kids to finish high school. I think I'm going to need support." She said, "Well, you got to go to Dillard." And went to Dillard. I made that decision, and it was the best decision. To go to an HBCU it's a very different experience because, of course, I got my master's from the University of New Orleans, which is not
Yeah.
an HBCU. But spending my first 4 years of college in at an HBCU was um, probably one of the best decisions I've made because I saw people that looked like me, but that were from all over the world, honestly. And we are not, as Black people, we are not a monolith. We are not just
There you
one
go.
dimensional.
There
So
you
it was
go.
really, really healthy for me to see Black people who looked like me, but maybe had different experiences. So it was one of the best decisions I've made.
Yeah, and something I always say, the president of Tougaloo here in Jackson a few years ago made a statement that I will never forget
Mhm.
because she was talking about the influx of international students at a HBCU, and she said historically black does not mean exclusively black. So there are
Absolutely.
people from all walks of life, and even here at Jackson State, they are known for having students for every corner of the globe: Europe, South America, Africa. And then, like you said, every black person is not the same. You have people from
Right.
all over the country that come to these HBCUs, and then the academic excellence of a school like Dillard. We mentioned part of the Black Ivy League, the very prestigious HBCUs that were founded in the 1800s, and look, and obviously we're big supporters of HBCUs here. We got some great, huge ones here. They have great football, but that's not the reason you choose a school. I really
Absolutely.
encourage everybody to make the best choice for them. That's going to fit you the best. And I tell this all the time. I went to a large high school here in our district, Madison Central, graduated with almost 500 people. And I
Wow.
got to the University of Southern Mississippi, and I got in a class with over 400 people, and there was literally a person in that class I had known my entire life. I did not
Mm.
know he was in the class until the last day. It is that easy to get lost in
Wow.
the shuffle.
Yeah,
Now, I love asking this question too to people that got the HBCU and the PWI experience because UNO is a great school as well. It's more of a commuter school, but
absolutely.
they got some great things going on at UNO. So talk about
Mhm.
that mix of getting the HBCU undergrad and the PWI grad school.
Oh, that's a good question as well. It was very different as far as even where I was in life. Honestly, I had just finished from Dillard. I finished from Dillard like in May. I was at UNO like the next month because I did not want to be one of those teachers who was in class teaching and saying, "Oh, I got to go to school after this." That was just something I wanted to get it over with, get it done, get my master's. But the experience was different in various ways. One, I was going for a master's program, so I had already kind of gone through the initial 4 years of being in college and meeting friends and all the things and communities. I was looking for something a little bit different when I got to UNO. I just wanted to finish. And that was perfect for me because there was not the community that I had become accustomed to. There was not the additional support. But I will say that it was a great experience as well because they were helping me to prepare for what was next as far as career, making connections, beginning to network. So it was a little bit hands off as far as let me help you fresh out of high school. And it was more of let me help you make the connections you'll need for this next step as a professional. So they were both great experiences.
That's all. That's awesome. Now, and you did mention right after college, you became a teacher.
I
Before you were
did.
an entrepreneur, you were a classroom teacher. So talk about, you were a teacher. I forget how many years, but that transferred into you becoming an entrepreneur.
It did. It did. I started teaching. Actually, I had to do, well, of course, your last year, my last semester, I had to do what we called student teaching. So we had to go into a school the last semester of college and actually work in a classroom. And I worked in a second grade classroom. And it just so happened that unfortunately, the teacher that I was in the classroom with, shadowing and helping, she found out that she had cancer. So they asked me to take her class full time. And so I was finishing school and ended up becoming a long-term sub. And it was a good experience because I realized that I did not want to teach second graders. Right. It was a second grade class and I realized I wasn't big on the touching and the tapping and the crying and the Miss James, right? So I realized it was perfect because I realized that I wanted to teach older kids. So I prefer high school, I prefer middle school, I prefer the older kids because I believe that my connection with them is a little bit I think it's more my speed, right? And I think that they resonate with me a little bit better. But I did start student teaching my last year in college, and then went right into a fourth grade position after I finished college while I was getting my master's degree. So I was actually ended up being one of those teachers who was going to class after teaching
Wow.
during the day. So yeah, I became one of those teachers.
Wow. So, and then you used, and we were talking about this before we went on, before we started recording, you used that experience as an educator to turn that into a business.
I
And you were
did.
just recently featured in the New Orleans Entrepreneur Week, where you gave one of the big speeches.
Yeah.
And we got to watch your video. You founded the Hype Academy and the Cash Academy, which is and we looked at some of the things you said about the importance because we
Mhm.
have so many kids that have come from out of this class that have started
Mhm.
businesses. We have
Oh
people in our
yeah.
community that started
Wonderful.
businesses. And one of the things that is overlooked time and time again is the financial part. Everybody
Yes.
sees the social media part. Everybody sees the fun part. They see the Instagram poses and come check out my business, but they haven't done any research on the
Yeah.
financial end of it. And it's just so important, especially in the black community where, look, I was interviewed by, and Caden, who's in here, was actually part of this interview as well. And he heard me
Mhm.
say this to a writer. I'll be the first person to tell you, rural America, especially rural black America, was left behind for so long when it comes to resources and access when it comes to financial literacy. And
Absolutely.
that spilled over into business owners. So that's where you saw this and said, look, we want some more entrepreneurs and we want people to make good decisions with their
Mhm.
money. So that's where all this came from. So tell us a little bit about that because it's such a great
Sure.
thing you're doing down there in New Orleans.
Yeah, going from a teacher, I thought that my mom was a para. So my mom was a teacher's aide for 23 years. And I think that between her and my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Weber, that's where I realized that I was a teacher just within. It's something that I gravitated toward naturally. But when I started teaching, when I actually got into the classroom, and that's why I'm a proponent of you all, young people, going and having different experiences. If you think you're interested in something, go check it out. Become an intern, volunteer, do something because there is something within you. There's something in you that's calling you in that direction, but you've got to go check it out to make sure that you're in the exact lane that you need to be in. Because I've always been a teacher, but going into the classroom is when I realized I was in the wrong lane as a teacher, right? Because you can be a teacher and do a myriad of things. You can do a ton of things. You don't just have to be a classroom teacher, which I admire and I fully understand that takes a certain personality and a certain person with a certain passion to do what it takes to be a classroom teacher. But I'll say that I taught for about 5 years. Katrina hit, and that's when I started rethinking what it is that I wanted to do with my professional career. So, fast forward, long story short, I ended up founding my own school. And I started with just two girls, a set of twins. So that's another lesson. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be humongous. But you've got to start somewhere. And I started that school with two girls, a set of twins, and then we grew it into Hype Academy, which stands for Helping Young People Excel. So that became our
That's
school.
awesome.
I ran that school. Thank you. I ran that school for about 12 years, myself and my husband. I say I a lot, but it was really myself, my husband, and then we pulled our team together. And what I found over those 12 years, which leads us to Cash Academy, what I found over those 12 years is that my lack of understanding of finances was critical, right? So when I say my lack of understanding of finances, I grew up in the projects here in New Orleans. We had several projects, but I grew up in the Desire, and then when we moved out of the Desire, yes, when we moved out of the Desire, I grew up on Desire Street. So we moved out of
Dang.
the projects and we started renting a home. My mom eventually bought it for $30,000. That's how long ago it was. And and the way that I knew that we had a little bit of money is my mama would say, "Put on some clothes, we're going to the mall." Right? That's how I knew if she had gotten maybe her tax refund, or if if something had come through. That was the only way we knew, and that was my relationship with money. We don't have it because our lights were always getting cut off. We didn't have a phone. We would have to go to the corner. Y'all may not know, but we had pay phones back then. We would have to stand on a corner and talk on a pay phone before cell phones. And we would have to use the phone on the corner. We would have to borrow from the neighbors. Our lights would be cut off. I would come home from school and we wouldn't have lights. We wouldn't have water. All the things, right? But when we did have money, we spent it. We didn't invest it. We didn't save it. We didn't give necessarily, right? So all of those things shaped my financial experience. So when I became a an entrepreneur and I began to run a business because I was passionate about young people and I want young people to excel and I love teaching and I loved every minute of it. Waking up in the morning and going to my school and making sure my kids were good and all the things. What I did not get a handle on was the money aspect, right? Paying taxes, knowing how much to pay people when you hire them, paying the lease payment and payroll when you hire. That's usually one of the biggest expenses in a business. So payroll and payroll taxes and keeping up with the money, what's coming in, what's going out, and paying for licenses. because I didn't know that, okay, I have to have a business license and the city of New Orleans takes their cut and the IRS takes their cut. So all of those things I learned on the job. I
Wow.
learned those while I was trying to teach and hire and run a business and learn how to do it better. I had to learn about the finances, and the train does not stop. So I believe that that is part of why we finally came to the decision in 2023 that it was time to shut the brick and mortar, is what we call it, an actual school building. We decided that we're going to keep Hype Academy, and we have, but we're going to shut the school down because it was still too much of a struggle financially. But I believe wholeheartedly that if I had a better handle on financial literacy, if I knew a little, if I had a better money mindset, if I knew how money worked, right? I think that we could have made some different decisions early on that would have helped us to maintain and even thrive as a brick and mortar business. So what I did, and stop me whenever, if
No,
you
you're good. I'm
if
loving
you
hearing
okay,
this.
all right. So what I did was once we shut down, so I did what I call an autopsy, right? So an autopsy is when you look at a dead thing, something that has passed on, and you say, okay, well, why did this die? Right? It's just like having a body on the table and you go in there and you try to find out the cause of death. So because I had been building Hype Academy for 12 years, it was a death to me. It was very painful. Even though I made the decision to shut it down, it was very painful. But I knew that this wasn't the end for me. So I needed to go back and examine why it wasn't as successful as I had expected it to be. And one of the main things that kept coming up for me was financial literacy. Financial literacy. You didn't know enough about money. You didn't know enough about how money works, how it flows, how it moves, all the things. And that's where Cash Academy came from. That's where that idea came from. So Cash Academy is what we're building now. So Hype Academy is our company, and our first project is Cash Academy. And Cash Academy is an app that we're developing that is a financial literacy app for Black and Brown kids that look just like me, that grew up just the same way that I grew up, or maybe different, maybe a different city, maybe not urban, maybe rural, but similar circumstances where you see a lot of poverty, a lot of lack. You go without a lot. No, we don't have enough to buy you any tennis this month, or no, we don't have enough to send you to that private school that requires tuition. So Cash Academy is the financial literacy app for Black and Brown youth that we're developing. And the goal is to make it entertaining, make sure that it's relevant, and teach young people how to earn, save, spend, give, and invest. So those
Wow.
five pillars, those five things. And as they learn, they earn actual points that can be translated into cash, either at banks like Capital One, Chase, or they can spend it with like Nike or Amazon, or they can
Wow.
invest it. So that's the app that we're building. We're in development now, building Cash Academy, so that young people who grew up just the way that I did will not have to sacrifice themselves as an entrepreneur. They'll already have a money mindset when they go in to do their other businesses.
Yeah, and something that you talk about on the video, and I'll share that with all the other teachers as well, is you talked about something that you want to do is help build the Black business community because it's no secret.
Absolutely.
So many Black business owners they say, I have an idea, I don't know how to fund it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of that disconnect, because like we said, there was no resource and access. And something that you said you were very passionate about, and I know we're on the same page on this. And I don't care if this is controversial or what, but you said it, and I'm going to say it too. We need more successful Black men in our communities. There are in
Absolutely.
way too many young Black men in New Orleans. There's way too many young Black men in Jackson dying in the streets that have all kind of intelligence and all kind of talent. And a lot of those things could have been avoided if they'd have had this type of knowledge to maybe start a legitimate business, to maybe not fall into that life of crime. And that disconnect is a lot larger than people realize. And you guys solving that problem or attempting to solve that problem there in New Orleans is such a great first step in people becoming successful business owners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm actually number 8 of 8. I have 5 brothers. So my mom had 5 boys and then she had 3 girls. I'm her last child. I have dozens of nieces and nephews. Now I love them all, but it's something about my nephews. It's something we that there's a special place that I have for specifically. I love my girls. I do. My black boys, I it's something about them, and I believe that it's because, like you said, they are so brilliant. They're so valuable, and they have so much to offer, and the world just does not see it yet. So a lot of them are becoming casualties of how the world perceives them and giving in to how the world perceives them. But I do believe that they have so many brilliant ideas. They have business ideas. They know how, they have a desire oftentimes to help their family get out of the situations that they're in. And that's often what leads them into the streets. It leads them into areas that are, of course, illegal. I believe because they have a heart to do something different for their family. I always say my mission here, as I see it, is to change my family tree. I got to change my family tree, right? I'm the first one to in my mom's, out of her 8 kids, I'm the first one to graduate from college. I'm the first one to get a master's degree. I'm the first one to buy a home. I'm the first one to buy more than one home, investment property. I'm the first one to start a business. I am a pioneer in my family. Is it easy? Absolutely not. When you're the youngest, first of all, I'm the youngest, and I've got 7 other siblings, 6 of them that are still surviving, and all of their children, their nieces, I mean, my nieces and nephews. I look at my Black men and my girls, and I'm not excluding anyone, but there's something about my Black boys that I believe that their brilliance, I think, can shine through when they get a better understanding of how this money thing works, and then they can start making better decisions when it comes to using that ingenuity that they have, using that for good.
Absolutely. Now, before I get to their questions, I think we got to talk about, you were one of the featured speakers at the New Orleans Entrepreneur Weekend just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And obviously, you were speaking in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. Now, these kids want to get so upset, and I know I can speak for all
Uh-oh.
the other when we make them present in front of 9 or 10 people,
Mhm.
and that is such an important skill. It's not to be mean, it's not to make people nervous, but even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, the ability to speak and the ability to articulate and sell can make you extremely successful in the
Oh,
world of business, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Little things like being able to walk in a room and introduce yourself, being able to sell something quickly to somebody, being able to say who
absolutely.
you work for and why you're the best. So obviously you did a great job because you were featured on all types of publications on this. So you were there in front of hundreds of people. How were you able to do so well at it, and why is it so important to have that skill?
Oh man, Greg, you got some good questions. The two things. How was I able to do it? Practice. I started when I can remember being in the washer, but the washerette. We call it a washerette. We didn't have a washer and dryer. And I can remember I had to be like 3 years old. And I remember practicing scriptures to say in front of Vacation Bible School. I had to be like 3. And I remember my mom was drilling me. We were sitting there waiting for our clothes to finish drying. And she was drilling me, and I was practicing and practicing to memorize and recite just one little scripture. It started there. It's not too late if you're in high school and you haven't done it, but you got to start now. You've got to start practicing. Look at it as an opportunity. When Mr. Greg says, "Hey, I want you to get up in front of the class," and it's 10 of you, just look at it as an opportunity to get some, we call them at bats, right? To get those opportunities to get in front of people and get the nerves out. You never really, in my experience, you're never really not nervous because you want to do a good job, but it becomes so much easier the more you do it, right? So that's the practice piece is what I've done, and I'll tell you why it's important. So recently I had an opportunity, and this is not public knowledge just yet. So y'all are like some of the first people to hear it. Recently, I don't know if you all have heard like all of the things going on here in the city with the Super Bowl having come and Master P being our entertainment ambassador here in the city. I had an opportunity to pitch an idea to Master P,
Oh,
right?
cool.
To write the curriculum for the NOLA Walk of Fame. I'm a
Wow.
teacher, but I got a pitch, right? I'm an educator, but also an entrepreneur. So writing the curriculum. So you look at it maybe as like a textbook, or if you're using like a Khan Academy. So I had an opportunity to get in front of Master P and tell him why he should pick me to write the curriculum so that when kids go on field trips and like when they come to the city of New Orleans to go to the NOLA Walk of Fame, my curriculum is what they'll be using to experience the field trip. And guess what?
Wow.
I had to pitch it, and guess who he chose?
He chose you.
He chose
That's
me,
incredible. That's
right?
incredible.
So it's communication skills. If I had gotten up there and I'm stuttering and I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm nervous and I'm not giving clear sentences and communicating clearly, you don't think as a teacher you're going to be in the room with a multimillionaire who's in entertainment. You don't necessarily think that, but as an entrepreneur, you never know what room you're going to end up in. So you've got to be prepared to communicate effectively. Do you have to be the best? You don't have to be the best person in the room. You don't have to have it all together, but you've got to practice, and you've got to make sure that you put yourself out there when those opportunities present.
Man, I'm telling you. And like I said, I know every teacher that'll see this letter can agree with that. But I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these
Yeah.
as I can. And these are good.
Go.
This first one is Shirai Luckett. He's in 10th grade. And he asked, have you ever thought about expanding your platform outside the city of New Orleans?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good question. Yes, we're starting in New Orleans and we're spreading throughout the deep South first. So, of course, like Arkansas, Mississippi is one of our areas, but we're starting in the deep South. But we are intending to go global. We've got to start somewhere, but absolutely, we are. Our goal is to build our MVP this year so that it can go global.
That's awesome. I like this
Yeah.
one. This is Terry. Johnson. He's a senior, one of our football players here. And he asked, what is the biggest thing you've had to sacrifice to be successful in business?
Ooh, that's a good question. The biggest thing. There are a couple of big things. I would say time. I've had to sacrifice time. I get up at 4:05 every morning.
Wow.
I get up at 4:05 in the morning. And I can usually get more done by the time the average person is up. I can get more done by 8 o'clock than they've got done all day. So
Wow.
I've had to make that sacrifice because I want this so badly. Because I want to be successful so badly. I want to change my family tree so much that I'm willing to get up before the sun comes up to get the work done.
Absolutely. I like this one. This is Caden Williams. He's in 10th grade, one of our football players, one of our champion power lifters here. And he asked,
Hey,
have you had any bad experiences when you were helping a client? And if you did, how did you deal with it?
ooh, Lord, y'all got some good questions. I did. Especially starting out. I was young. I started teaching when I was 20. So I was very young when I started. And then, of course, I started my school when I was around 25, right after Katrina, 20, 25, 26.
Wow.
And I had to learn how to deal with parents who would come in and there would be maybe an issue with a student, one of my students. I had to learn. And I look back over the years and I have grown tremendously. And I look back at maybe how I didn't handle a situation very well in the beginning, but the situation is going to come back around until you figure it out, right? So the goal is just do better next time. It may not be perfect this time, but just do better next time. So yeah, I've had experiences with parents where we didn't see eye to eye and things got heated. And then, but now I am much more mature and I'm able to do a better job of disagreeing without arguing.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people can learn
Yeah.
that. I got time for two more.
Yeah.
This is Robert Branson. He's a senior, another one of our football players. And he asked, was being an entrepreneur something you thought you would do as a child?
No, no, that, oh, y'all got good questions. I did not decide that I could be because remember, I didn't see any entrepreneurs growing up. There was my mom was in the classroom as a teacher's aide, right? My whole life. She was and because they didn't make any money, and she worked at a restaurant in the evenings. She worked the polls when it was election time. Like, so I didn't see anybody starting their own business, building it from scratch, and becoming successful at it. I never saw that. So when I got to college, when I started school at Dillard, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I recommend that book to any. It's by Robert Kiyosaki.
I've got a copy in here.
Oh, that book, Greg, changed my life, my entire life, because it helped me to look at myself differently. It helped me to see that I had much more potential than just to be in my head. I was going to be in the classroom and I was just going to retire from education. That was going to be my life. I was going to be a teacher because that's what I saw. I saw teachers go in the classroom and then 30, 40, 45 years later they enter drop and then they retire. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I realized that the only way that I was going to get rich, wealthy and change my family tree was to become an entrepreneur.
Love
And
it.
that's how I realized.
Love it. All right, I got one more. I love this
All
one.
right.
This is Jay. He's a senior. And he asked, was the overall purpose of becoming an entrepreneur to make money or to change society?
Change. That was the overall purpose. The overall purpose was change. And I believe wholeheartedly, if you know how money works, you get that financial literacy under, like, make sure you understand how money moves, how it flows, how it works, all the things. Know that in the background, but only do what is your passion. Only do what you would do for free. If you can't do it without being paid, that's not your passion. That's not what you should be doing. Because the thing is, if you are in position and doing what you love, the money comes. It comes automatically. So if you're in now, you got to know how to handle it when it comes. So I'm not saying disregard money and how it works, but the money is going to come when you're doing what you're passionate about.
Love it. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, tell us where to find Cash Academy online. I know you got a lot of YouTube content. So just tell us where we can find it.
Yeah. So right now, so like I said, we're in development, but you can find me. I don't know. Are y'all on Instagram? Because I'm on Instagram. You
Yeah,
can follow
yeah, they
me.
can all follow
All
you on
right.
IG right now.
Okay. So my full name and on all platforms, my full name, Arianne Craig Jolla, Arianne Craig I'm on all platforms. I welcome you to follow me because that's where you're going to start seeing the journey for Cash Academy.
Yeah, and all one word. I just found it myself and followed. But
Yeah, thank you.
we go, and it's no coincidence that I had you speak during Black History Month because it's just such an important time to honor great HBCUs, great African American business leaders that have given so much to pave the way for our young people. So, as these kids get ready to transition out of high school to whatever their next step is, why is it so important for them to understand the need for more Black business owners, whether they're as a side hustle, part time, or as a full time entrepreneur?
There is no there's no America without Black folks,
Yep.
right? And I'm talking about from blood, sweat, and tears building this country. And it's no shade to anybody else, y'all. It's really no shade to anybody else. This country does not exist without us. So Black businesses help us to ensure that the ones coming behind us, our children, our nieces, our nephews, their children, it makes sure that they're good, right? So we already are behind in a sense on that. So Black business is the way that we're going to be able to catch up, right? And maybe make up some of the time with changing those that are coming behind us. We cannot do it working for someone else only. You can work for somebody else, but you always have to have your own stream of revenue that you control.
Absolutely. Well, at some point we got to have you in person. I was just blown away by all this
I would
today.
love to. I
When
would
Cash
love to.
Academy really expands into Mississippi, we would love to have you on campus next year. Just we
Awesome.
thank you so much for joining us, Arianne Craig Jolla, all the way from New Orleans, founder of Cash Academy, Dillard University graduate. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. Bye, y'all.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
All right.